WGStyle.com, and today we're going to be doing a sew along with one of my new Summer Patterns with Simplicity 8392. Now if you're new to sewing or want to learn to sew, make sure to go visit sewitacademy.com, where we teach you how to sew from the very beginning to the very end. Now if you just need a refresher course, you can click the link in the description box below and follow the basics video and then come back and sew along with me. Okay, now we're going to be working on our leggings, so you're going to need... So now we're going to be working on our leggings, and in the back of the envelope it tells you exactly what fabric to be using, any notions you're going to need, and what size to cut based on your measurements. So you're going to need some elastic, 1/2 inch wide, and you're going to need the following pattern pieces. Pattern piece 17 and 18 are your pocket and pocket band. Pattern piece 20 is the drawstring. Pattern piece 16, which is the back of our leggings. Pattern piece number 15, which is the front of our leggings. And we have pattern piece number 19, which is the front and back of our skirt overlay. Okay, we're going to start with one back leg and one front leg. I want you to place them right sides facing, and we're going to stitch our side seam first so that we can attach our pocket. So go ahead and pin along your side seam. So go ahead and take this to your machine and stitch it down using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I'll see you back here to complete our pocket. Okay, so I went ahead and did my side seam, and so before I do my inseam, I'm just going to go ahead and prep and finish my pocket. So get your pocket band and your pocket, and I'm going to actually be attaching this right side to wrong side. So the reason I'm going to do that is because it's easier when we do that to turn this over and top stitch it without having to wonder whether or not we're catching the underside. So take your band and your pocket and place your band right side to wrong side. And then we're going to stitch that using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we're going to turn this over and top stitch. Okay, so we're going to back stitch. And now I'm going to go ahead and trim 1/2 of my seam allowance. And now I'm going to fold over and stitch. Now go ahead and give this a good press. Okay, now I'm going to do a stitching line down the sides, across the bottom, and up the other side, just so that I know exactly where to turn when I pin this to my pants. So I'm just going to stitch all the way around along a 5/8 of an inch line. Now we're going to go ahead and pin this to our pants. Okay, now I have my markings. It's going to be a little hard for you guys to see because it's so colorful, but I have my markings for where my pocket needs to go, right? You should have those dots that you transferred from your tissue paper. And I have my pocket, and I'm going to be turning over along my stitching line, down the side, across the bottom, and then pinning it. So I'm going to fold under first. I'm going to place my pocket where it needs to go. Going to pin, and now I'm going to fold along the stitching line on the other side. That stitching line makes it a whole lot easier to turn under. And now I'm going to stitch close to the edge all the way around the pocket. Okay, back stitch at the beginning. I'm going to Pivot. Now we have our cell phone pocket. Okay, once you've done your pocket, go ahead and sew your inseam like I've done here. So you're going to go ahead and do 5/8 of an inch seam allowance along your inseam. And then with one turned wrong side out and one turned right side out, I want you to slip the one that's right side out inside of the wrong side out one. And we're going to pin at the crotch. So match that inseam. And then you can match up your 3 notches. That's the back of your pant of your legging. And then pin at the top. And then pin the remaining front crotch. So you're going to pin those 2 notches that you have. And then pin at the top. Now we're going to go and we're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. Back stitch. Okay, we're going to set our leggings aside for just a second. And we're going to grab our overlay. Now before we attach our overlay to each other, I want you to finish the hem. So I want you to turn up the hem and finish it on one piece on the front, and then you're going to do the same thing on the back. You're going to turn up your hem allowance and go ahead and finish it off, and then we're going to attach front to back at the side seams. Okay, so we're going to lay our overlay right sides facing, and we're going to pin our side seams. I'm going to pin both sides. And we're going to stitch our side seams using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Back stitch at the beginning. You're going to do the other side seam the same way. Okay, I went ahead and pressed my side seams open. We're going to create the channels for our drawstring. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew 3/8 of an inch away from our seam line, making sure that underneath you move the other part of the skirt out of the way because we only want to work on one side. And we're going to back stitch. I'm going to turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. You're going to create the other 2 channels on the other side. Now once you've created your channels for your drawstrings, go ahead and make your drawstrings. I went ahead and did mine. You're just going to fold them in half, stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then turn them right side out. Now I'm going to use my safety pin, and I'm going to put it through the top of one of my drawstrings, and I'm just going to pull it through one of my channels. I'm going to pull it, and just before I get to the very end of my drawstring, I'm going to pin it. And then I'm going to put the rest of my drawstrings into my channels. Once you do that, I want you to go ahead and just top stitch across the top just to secure your drawstrings at the very top at the waistline so that it doesn't come out when you pull at the bottom. Okay, so now we're going to attach our overlay to our leggings, and I just want to point out now when this is all finished, you can either wear the skirt full length or you could just pull on your drawstrings to adjust the length of the skirt, and then of course create that side gathered effect. Okay, now with both your leggings and your overlay turned wrong side out, you're going to slip your overlay over your leggings. And I want you to pin along your side seams. And now we're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now we're going to stitch all the way around using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Okay, now you're going to grab your piece of elastic that's cut either using your elastic guide or measure around your waist. Don't pull too tightly, and then measure and cut your piece of elastic. You're going to overlap it by 5/8 of an inch. You're going to stitch it down so that we have one full circle of our elastic. We're going to apply our elastic to the waistline. Okay, so now I want you to put your elastic over your skirt, over your leggings, and we're going to pin at each side seam. Now we're going to be stitching our elastic onto our seam allowance all the way around. So I'm just going to pin on one side. And then pin on the other. And as you can see, we're going to need to stretch a little bit. So as we're sewing, we're going to be stretching this. Okay, I'm switching from my straight stretch stitch to my zigzag stitch. And I'm going to make sure that my elastic is within my seam allowance, kind of centered. And I'm going to pull slightly as I'm sewing on my elastic. Okay, now I'm going to turn this to the right side. And then you turn your overlay to the right side. And then you have a very nice clean finish. And the elastic is inside. Now all that's left for you to do is to finish the hem of your legging, and you are all done. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Until next time, peace.